The Buccaneers lose Mike Evans at an absolutely terrible time. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky WTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, you can check out everything that Evan is doing over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And I am with you 5 days a week, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. How can the Bucs beat the Eagles with that defense and Klosky's crystal ball coming up in a little bit? But for the second straight week, Evan, on this WTSP episode, we are talking about a significant injury to a key player. Mike Evans will be out an estimated 3 to 4 weeks with the hamstring injury that he suffered late in Sunday's game against the Jets. And Evan, if you'll indulge me here for a minute, here are the players that the Bucs have lost so far this season for any kind of length of time due to injury, and feel free to call me out if I miss one. Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, Jalen McMillan, Luke Gedeke, Cody Malk, Michael Jordan, Benjamin Morrison, Kalijah Kancey, Logan Hall, Ko Kieft, Christian Izzy, David Walker, J.J. Roberts, and now Mike Evans. Hopefully, Godwin returns sooner than later, maybe this week. But how much more can the Bucs take?
Luckily, as long as Baker Mayfield's still trotting out there and somewhat put together, even though he's dealing with his own crap, the floor is high, but you're starting to really reach your breaking point here. The team was so well built with a lot of depth, and they've now tapped into the depth, and there's no depth beyond the depth, right? Like, all NFL teams, right? After the 2 deep, it's like, what are we doing here? When Kalijah Kancey went down, I said, hey, this team actually has some, a lot of depth at the defensive tackle position, right? They have the most amount of players on the practice squad there. They just elevated CJ Brewer. Like, there's a lot of people who can fill in there. So that was the Kancey thing. But, if you lose Jamel Dean or Zion McCollum, right, you got Benjamin Morrison. After that, it gets sketchy. Ko Kieft was kind of a one-of-one on this roster. There is no replacing Ko. He's kind of like that fullback-ish type of dude. And, can you convert Payne Durham into a Ko role? I don't know. That one's just you don't think about Ko from a receiving side of things, but he does a lot on special teams, and he does a lot in the rushing attack and blocking. So that's a big deal. Wide receiver, as stacked of a position as you're going to get entering the season. And with Mike going down, you now have Emeka Egbuka as your 1, Sterling Shepard as your 2, Ryan Miller as your 3, and Tez Johnson as your 4. Now, could that be worse? Absolutely. The fact that they've lost Chris and Mike, and you're able to kind of trot out a group of players who I think are pretty damn good. That's a tip of the cap to Jason Light and everybody. But, the whole reason why they drafted Emeka was to avoid the issues they had last year when Mike and Chris went down. And here we are. We don't know Chris entering this week at this point. We're hopeful he'll play Sunday. As of right now of this taping, I'm still a bit skeptical it's going to happen. Even if he does play, it's going to be in a limited role. So, you just have to hold water. That's what you're doing. And that's why the 3-0 start is so important, because Bowles said it best after the game. Not a finished product, not even close, but you keep stacking wins while you figure it out. And the cavalry will come back. Co will not, unfortunately. Cody Malk will not, unfortunately. But guys like Luke, guys like Mike, guys like Chris, guys like Tristan, Christian Isian, these guys will eventually return, and you just got to hold your water. So is it bad? Absolutely. Does it suck for a fan base to have to deal with this all last year? Yes. But that experience last year has primed them to be more adaptable this season. And, so far, so good.
Well, on to brighter news. The Bucs won again. It was way, way more stressful than it should have been. But what was your biggest takeaway from the win over the Jets in yet another game-winning drive in the final minute?
Well, just an absolute mess of a finish to that contest, right? I mean, we kind of left the third quarter being like, looks like this team's going to park it into cruise control. All right. It's been a while. And 21 points given up in the fourth quarter, unacceptable.
It's not great.
Yeah, yes, I understand fans are going to be mad at the fourth down catch in the end zone that may or may not have been a catch from Lazard. Certainly there were 2 penalties on the blocked field goal that were not called. But having said that, there's still a bunch of precipitating events before those even popped up that we wouldn't even be talking about that stuff if the Buccaneers did their job. So it's a reminder to them that against the Jets, that's okay, but against other teams, that's not going to fly, and they'll just get punished for it later. For the most part, it's all right. But yeah, I mean, to say that it's really hard to win in the NFL like this week after week. At some point, your luck's going to run out. At some point, you are going to get knocked in the face. So they have the winning pedigree, which is great. Do not underestimate the value of having a 2-game cushion on the NFC South lead. Also, the Atlanta Falcons are 0-2 in the NFC South. On top of that, right now, you got the Panthers tied with the Falcons. You already have the tiebreaker with the Falcons. So we're entering week 4, and you've already put yourself in a decent spot. So I think that I don't want to overanalyze all the bad that went into that fourth quarter without giving the team kudos for 1 through 3. But at some point, I know Todd, Zion McCollum I spoke to after the game, they all mentioned it. And it was a huge point of emphasis entering the season in training camp, one of Todd Bowles' first speeches to the team. Got to have a killer mentality. Got to have a killer instinct. And that's and certainly in the 2-minute drill, we see that. But you have to see that before your back's up against a wall and you can actually park it into neutral and really assert your will over another group. That's what we're still waiting to see.
Yeah, I had mentioned it on the live reaction episode. It was in that fourth quarter, Todd went into his bend, don't break defense, but the defense forgot not to break. And it opened the floodgates. They couldn't rev it back up when they needed to. And when the Jets started putting together some points. So it was definitely frustrating. It was a super frustrating first quarter from an offensive standpoint and a super frustrating game in the fourth quarter from a defensive standpoint. The middle part, that part was cool. That was fun. I enjoyed it. But yeah, the 7 holding penalties in the first quarter, that was it was an absolute disaster. Yeah. And you know what, Evan, the Eagles matchup, that isn't going to be any easier. It doesn't look pretty. We're going to talk about that next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is where I always go to place all my parlays, my prop bets, my game bets for just about every sport. I've told you guys about the group parlay that my buddies and I do each and every week, and it adds a little bit of spice to our NFL Sundays. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3.5-point home underdogs to the Philadelphia Eagles with an over-under of 45.5. And the Bucs are now minus 260 to win the NFC South, minus 420 to make the playoffs, plus 135 to win 12 games, and plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. All right, the Bucs host the Eagles this Sunday in the only meeting of 3-0 teams in the NFL. Now, there's only 6 3-0 teams left. One of those is the Indianapolis Colts for some reason. No idea why.
They were the benefits of a leverage call that wasn't called for the Buccaneers.
I guess so, but also shout out to Indiana Jones. Go ahead and throw a couple bucks on him to win MVP because it may not happen, but if it does, that's a nice payday. But the Bucs, they've won 6 of their last 7 meetings with the Philadelphia Eagles. Their only loss since 2015 came back in September of 2023. This offensive line, though, has been really tough to watch the first 3 weeks, and this is probably the best defense that they have faced up to this point. Now, Houston's was fantastic, and you and I were talking about how some of the numbers for the Eagles are surprising, but also somewhat skewed. But how can the offensive line give Baker the time that he needs, as well as opening up some run lanes for Bucky and Rashad in this one?
There's certainly going to have to key on a guy like Jalen Carter, right? I think you're going to need 2 bodies on him at all times.
Can Vita play center?
Yeah, right. Jordan Davis, actually, for the heroics he had last week against the Rams, has been very underwhelming this season for the Eagles, which has presented a bit of an issue for them. Certainly, they're not generating the sacks that they were last year. That D-line, outside of, certain pieces, has been completely reshaped. They lost some pieces in the offseason. So it's not exactly, defensively speaking, the same stout group that won the Super Bowl last year. Offensively speaking, in the trenches, the Eagles are a problem. One of the best O-lines in the league. We do believe Lane Johnson's going to be able to play. I know he left last week with a stinger. It does seem like he is going to play in this contest, though, and that will present some issues. Certainly the defensive line for the Buccaneers is a strength. 11 straight games they haven't given up 100 yards. I guarantee you a team like the Eagles that has lost 6 of 7 against the Buccaneers, that has a running back like Saquon Barkley, has there in bold letters, 100. That's what we want. Right? For a team that has that championship pedigree, that's what you want. So, and I do want to mention this, like in a very similar fashion to the Bucs, the Eagles have not looked great, and they're 3-0. The Bucs have not looked great, and they're 3-0. That offense for the Eagles is a trash can right now, to be honest. Jalen Hurts got it going in the second half against the Eagles. They blocked a couple of field goals, which special teams wise, we have to talk about that now because they're a mess, the Buccaneers, on special teams. And considering what the Eagles just did against the Rams, would be a little concern there. So that's something you got to weigh in there. But
they'll probably get away with leaping the same way they get away with false starts on the tush push.
Yeah, certainly. So, we looked at the rushing game. The Eagles have not been good against the run this year. So we looked at why. Game 1 against the Cowboys, Miles Sanders ripped off a 49-yard run. Remove that from the equation, they gave up 3.3 yards per rush. Then in game 2 against the Chiefs, you had Patrick Mahomes, who ran all over the Eagles, pretty much out of desperation. He went 7 of 66. Other than Mahomes, the Chiefs rushing attack, I think they did 2.89s per carry. And then last week against the Rams did a really good job running the ball. There's really no that was straight up. So you wonder what's kind of going on there, and if the Bucs can lean into some of that, because they got to run the ball. That is going to be their path for success, especially without a guy like Mike Evans suiting up for the Buccaneers. Having said that, the Eagles will be, could be down two cornerbacks, so there could be an area to exploit there. But it's going to be a chess match. And wrapping this up here and just a bunch of thoughts on the game. So Jalen Hurts will play the Buccaneers for the sixth time. He's 1-4 against them. In the last meeting, got to remember the last meeting, they didn't have Lane Johnson, they didn't have Devonta Smith, they didn't have A.J. Brown.
Right.
They punted the game. It was I don't know what the hell that performance was. Bucs win 33-16. Hurts sacked 6 times. And the Eagles actually ran 20 for 113, but they got game scripted out of it.
And 59 of it came on one run. So outside of that one run, Barkley was 9 for 25 in the game.
And historically, Todd Bowles has done really well against Saquon Barkley. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you want to, out there, you're bored for 5 minutes, go through Saquon Barkley and his games versus the Buccaneers. It hasn't been pretty for him.
I'll search for it for the crossover. Let me see if I can throw that at Louis of Locked On Eagles.
There you go. Throw it his way. But then also that playoff game, they got to Hurts 3 sacks. The thing about Hurts was in the first 3 meetings, Hurts actually threw 5 picks. And recently he has not thrown the picks, but he's eaten more sacks. So you have to wonder if Jalen has said, I'm going to take my L's instead of giving the ball away. And that's, Todd, big picture wise, Todd has been really successful against Jalen Hurts. And I think Hurts, if I remember from the playoff game, there was, Todd would start sending blitzes a certain way because Hurts would only roll out one way, and they would kind of, move their coverage to where they knew they can flush Hurts, because that's where he always scrambled to. I'm sure everybody's aware of that now, but it is interesting to know that Todd has a good history of messing with Hurts. So on paper, it looks like the Eagles are going to win this game. If the Bucs are going to pull it out, they're going to have to do it defensively, and it could be another rock fight. I mean, actually, like I said last week, the Jets and Bucs was going to be gritty, not pretty, a little bit of a rock fight, right? You got the pick 6, which made it 26-13 in the aggregate, but for the most part, that's kind of what it was. It was, until the end there, where 10 points, 10, what was it? It was 3. Yeah, there was 17 points scored in the final 4 minutes. So it just got weird there at the end. But for 56 minutes of that game, that was a rock fight. And that's how you have to do it. Like, offense is beaten up right now. Defense, we got to lean on you, because other than Cansey, other than Izzian, the Bucs are ready to roll. And this secondary is damn good.
They're certainly pretty impressive. I do want to note real quick, I mean, these are 2 top 10 teams in terms of 4th down conversion percentage and red zone defense, as well as goal to go defense. So these are 2 really elite defenses when you get inside the 20s. They, again, the bend don't break. Real quick, Evan, I want to see, feel free to call me out, call me names, tell me I'm hallucinating and stupid. Over the course of the last
I can always do that.
I've been really critical of Levante David. He has been missing some plays that are very uncharacteristic of him. Are you seeing the same things? Are you concerned about Levante? Because that's the guy we would normally hang our hat on and say, this is the guy that's going to step up. He's going to remove Saquon from the equation. He's going to be the force in the middle. Are you a little concerned with Levante's play as of late?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you watch the first drive against the Jets, a nightmare for Levante. He had a DPI. He missed a sack. He also missed a tackle on was it Tyrod Taylor? But he essentially missed. He missed 2 tackles and had a DPI. I think he found his groove there a little bit, and figured it out. But yeah, he hasn't been Superman, or he hasn't been, all reliable, which, remains to be seen. We gotta see if these are kind of the warning signs that Levante is finally hitting the end, or is he just a guy who's getting acclimated to what's going on right now? So, early season, revving back up, it's been 3 games. So, after 4 or 5, we'll see. This is a big game. They need him. And so if he can't perform like we know he can, really weird stuff too. Like he drops the pick in Houston. Mm-hmm. Just those to me seem more freak-ish mistakes than like talent-wise, but I'm not going to say you're crazy or hallucinating. I'm just not there to draw my opinion yet. But it's on my it's something I'm seeing. I haven't gone to Twitter with it yet because I'm just not there. There's still enough good that keeps me from spotlighting the bad, but I'm on watch.
We're not sounding the alarm. We're just saying something to keep an eye on.
Just reminding folks where the alarm is, and
in case of emergency.
If you need to go and use it, please use it wisely.
Well, the other thing we're going to be keeping an eye on is the crystal ball. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, and it is that crystal ball time. Evan, you and I were talking before we started recording the show. You kind of little bit got screwed out of your bold hitting. You said last week the Bucs defense was going to get 3 takeaways. They got the fumble, they got a pick 6, and Jamel Dean got a second interception that was overturned because of a bad pass interference call because Tyler Johnson couldn't stay on his feet. So I'm going to give that one to you. You got that one right. Gold star, A+, virtual high five. Taking a look at this game, Bucs are home underdogs. I guess as well they should be. And again, you reserve the right to change these based on the injury reports. You might get Tristan Wirfs. We might get Chris Godwin. So I'll check back in with you before I do the live preview episode at the end of the week. But let's start this one off. What is your bold prediction for this game?
My bold prediction, 10 total points in the first half.
Oh, man.
Like a 7-3 game. It made it extra bold. I was going to say 13, but I feel like that's not like really that bold. So I had to go extra bold.
The only half of the game that I'm going to get to watch live because Beckett has a puck drop at 3:00, which means that he has to be there at 2:00, and I can only watch up until his game starts, and then I gotta play catch up afterwards. So, thank you for cursing me with a very boring half of football to watch in a very crowded area. Really appreciate that. All right. We talked about the Eagles being susceptible to the run, especially the big play on the run. But the Rams did a great job They didn't, their longest rush as a team was 13 yards last week. Are we going Bucky back-to-back weeks here against the Eagles defense? You said Bucs defense is going to have to win this one. Who are you looking to for your predicted player of the game?
I really don't know with this one, to be honest. I said I think it's going to be a defensive rock fight. So I feel like I want to go somewhere defensively with it. And in my opinion, if the Eagles are watching tape, you can't really pick on the rookie Jacob Parrish because he looks phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Antoine. Jamel Dean, low-key, playing at an all-pro level. So do you test Dean? I don't know. Maybe you go and test off a guy like Zion McCollum. And Zion, who, had his brother with the Eagles. I think he got released and now he's somewhere else.
I think he's with the Raiders.
Is he with the Raiders?
I think so.
I'll go with Zion. Maybe an interception, a pass deflection. As I said, it's going to be a rock fight, so I just don't know offensive. I think it's going to be a lot of spread the love. Like Bucky's an easy answer because what his, what he's going to kind of get volume wise. But everybody else, I feel like they're all going to have to chip in. They're going to have to, give Emeka Egbuka some. They're going to have to give Shepard some. They're going to have to give Ryan Miller a couple of catches. They're going to have to feature the tight end just for one or two things. So that's my pick, Zion McCollum. Really not confident with my player of the week pick. Usually never good. I think the easy revenge sighting would be Hassan Reddick.
Sure.
But I don't know what he could do against this Eagles offensive line.
Before we get to your score prediction, one thing that I do want to ask you that I meant to ask when you were talking about the offense, Mike's out. We don't know about Chris. Jalen's out. So it's Egbuka, Shep, who's been fantastic, Tez, Cam, Ryan Miller. Is this the week we're finally going to see Cade Otton get involved? Because I feel like he's kind of been stuck in a different role than what we're used to seeing him in. I think there's been a lot of times where he's having to help keep Baker upright rather than going out on some of these routes. I don't think he had any targets against the Jets. He only has, I think, like 3 or 4 receptions on the season. So with Mike for sure being out in this one, is this when we're going to see Cade start to be able to take advantage of the lack of receivers like we saw during that stretch last year?
It might be Cade, might be a little bit of Devin Colt. Might get a couple of catches from him because, without Coe now, you're going to have to elevate another tight end. So, or you're going to have to make active Devin since he's on the roster. So do you leave Cade as sort of this option of blocking and doing all the things that you kind of trust him to do? And then Devin, you bring him in on obvious passing down situations and kind of use him to stretch the field a little bit at the seams. Like those are the things that I look at. But I do agree. I'm not concerned about Cade because this offense has been so beaten up with the line, with the receivers, that they kind of just need Cade to help out in other ways. And, if Baker doesn't screw up a throw in Atlanta, maybe we're not even bringing up Cade because he would have like a 50-yard touchdown catch to his name. But, because of that, we are. And I'm not – until we get into a mode where the offense is healthier, I don't think we will really see Cade at his full potential. I just think that he's being a good soldier. He's doing what the team needs him to do because they're just so beaten up right now.
All right. Well, we got Zion as your player of the game. We got a low scoring first half as your bold. What's your score prediction for this one? 2-1 on the season. Where do you see this one going?
You're going to have to check back in with me Friday.
Absolutely. You got it.
In my heart of hearts, I actually do really want to take the Buccaneers because I think their defense can rise to the occasion. And I do believe that the Philadelphia Eagles offense is a bit broken. And if there's anybody who can exploit that and take advantage of it, it's Todd Bowles. I just needed the Buccaneers to be a bit – even if Mike Evans was available, with Evans and Ibuka, I would have said, okay, one's going to have Quignon and the other one's going to probably be free. Let them ride. I just think they're a little bit too banged up. So I think you're going to see a really close first half. And I honestly think this game, it's going to be like 7-3, and then the Eagles will score, make it 14-3, and then the Bucs will get back on the board. It'll be 14-10, and it will kind of feel like the Bucs are in it, and then something's just going to go wrong. Maybe it's a turnover for the Buccaneers, and Eagles score, and then the Bucs kind of tack one on late, and or maybe they don't. I don't know. It's going to be something along those routes. So for right now, I do have 23-13 Eagles. But again, I think a lot of those points come towards the end of the game where they just kind of poop out again. But they're going to be in this. I think this is not going to be like blowout city type of deal. Gritty, not pretty. That's going to be the theme again.
That's going to be the motto, like engraved in the Super Bowl rings is gritty, not pretty.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Amir Abdur-Rahim, which I took that from RIP. But I think that this team, they're going to have to dig really deep to get this one. I am a little bit worried that the Eagles are going to be motivated for this contest. Coming in a day earlier, which does nothing, but they're coming in a day earlier. They are coming off a Super Bowl championship. There's not many games that they get up for. Other people are getting up for them, but they're going to get up for this because they've always struggled against the Buccaneers recently. As I said, they're going to circle 100 yards rushing on the board and try to break that streak. It's just a tough time to play this squad. But circle back to me. I might change my mind.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the practice reports, the injury reports, and obviously what's being said after Friday, because that's the important one. Tristan and Chris, they've been limited for a couple of weeks, but by Friday they've been designated out. So that's really what we're going to have to keep an eye on before, even I swing my prediction over to the Bucs. Right now I'm leaning Eagles pretty hard, just for the exact same reason. They're just so banged up. All right, Evan, what do we have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app?
You can watch the Ultimate Florida Sports Show on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. You can also watch The Blitz on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. That's been airing Friday nights. We've been getting that up. Also on our YouTube page. You can watch it in the Tampa Bay area on 10 Tampa Bay at 8:30 and 7:30 in the morning on Sundays, but you can watch it on demand 10 Tampa Bay Plus and on YouTube. So those are really the things that we're cooking up on demand for y'all. And then otherwise, 6 and 11 o'clock, they'll still see me. David's changing a diaper for another 3 weeks. I mean, he'll always be changing diapers until, the kid's grown up. But
yeah,
David will not be back until the Niners game. So we still got a little time without David.
On the pup list for
That's right. He's on the commissioner's list.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that his wife's probably the commissioner and says, you're staying here. You're helping me with this, child. All right. That is going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JRCO_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs at both of those places. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcast. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's super, super easy. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.